The trade deadline is looming, and the New York Yankees are making moves to improve a team that already has exceeded our expectations. Notice I said our expectations, not just my expectations, but also the expectations of Locked On Yankees host Stacey Gotsulias, who, by pure coincidence, is the guest on today's episode of Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you're watching me on the YouTubes, you know you can call me Sully. Follow me at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Who the heck am I? Who the heck am I? I'm a comedian sometimes. I've been an Emmy-nominated television producer. I've been a podcaster for over a decade. And I have appeared on HBO Sports, yapping and being a funny talking head. Well, let me tell you something. There's someone out there who is completely unimpressed by that credit because she too has been on HBO Sports being a funny talking head, yapping on a very different special. Let's bring her back. Friend of the podcast, friend of all things Locked On, the person who introduced me to the Locked On world. So I owe her a finder's fee. Stacey Gotsulias, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Because it tickles me because I grew up thinking HBO was this unattainable force of entertainment in my life, and knowing that I appeared on the HBO doc Curse of the Bambino, and then another one, which I won't talk about. But I was a kind of a talking head of a Red Sox fan talking about that, and I didn't realize until many years later, because you were in 9 innings from Ground Zero, which I saw when it came out. And as someone who lived in New York in 2001, I was obviously interested in it. As a classic Yankee hater, I couldn't believe I found myself getting teared up about Yankee fans, having happiness. But little did I know, one of the faces that I saw in there would be a friend of the podcast.
That was a very odd experience for me because I belonged to a Yankees message board, NYY fans, and someone had come into one of the threads talking about, I believe they were originally going to do a Yankees-Red Sox rivalry, I guess, documentary. And the woman who was scouting for people said, leave a few paragraphs about yourself, how big a Yankee fan you are, because I believe it was going to be for Fox, and I don't know if it was ever made. I don't think it was, because it was 2000. It was the beginning of 2004 when this happened. So I wrote like 8 paragraphs, and one of them was about the 2001 playoff experience and what it was like being at Yankee Stadium. So she sent me a private message and said, "Look, my friend is doing a documentary for HBO on that. Would you, if he reached out to you, would you talk to him?" I'm like, yes. And within a week, I was being interviewed for 9 innings from Ground Zero. I was like, what? It was really amazing. And I didn't embarrass my parents. So that was always, that was my goal. Because, HBO did have some shows that you could embarrass your family on. And I did not go on any of those. So.
Who you would happen to remember who the director was or who the producer was that you met with, do you?
HBO?
Yeah, for
Joe
the
Levine.
HBO one.
Joe Levine.
Okay. Yeah, I was there was 2 that I worked with. One was Brett and the other was John Stone, but I got involved in that because I was doing a lot of stand-up comedy. I was living in New York at the time. I was doing a lot of stand-up comedy, and my Red Sox fandom was as subtle as a tidal wave. And a friend of mine knew they were doing when they did the first one, Curse of the Bambino, which was basically about how pathetic we Red Sox fans were. I knew someone in HBO who said, "Do you have my friend Sully in the show?" And I said, "Who's that?" I said, "He's a comedian. You have to get him on." And I did a phone interview with the guy who wound up being the producer. And like about 10 minutes into the phone interview, he just stopped. He said, we're using you, right? We're just going to keep going.
Yeah.
And so I came in, we shot it like in some stately room, like at some like, it was right out of Trading Places where Dan Aykroyd would have belonged in Trading Places. And the film critic Jeffrey Lyons was just finishing up his segment, and he left, and I came in, and we just shot. And the two things that got me, you became a meme with or a GIF.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you became a GIF with the.
I made myself a GIF when I well, apparently I was a hit in the HBO offices. Okay, was it a blur for you? Because I honestly didn't even remember what I said to them, and I was, they interviewed me for like an hour and 15 minutes, and when it was over, I really couldn't remember what the hell I said. So, he was giving me progress reports as it was going on. He's like, "No, you're featured a bunch of times," and I'm like, I was like, "Why did I do this to myself? Oh God, this is gonna be bad." And the premiere, most of the cast of The Sopranos was there. Rudy Giuliani was there. James Gandolfini wasn't there, but everyone else was. Edie Falco was there.
Wow.
Paulie Walnuts was there. It was like,
Rest
oh
in
God.
peace.
I saw all these people. I'm like, oh no, because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't remember how I looked. I didn't even remember what I wore that day. Like, it was just really like, oh my God, I'm going to be on this giant movie screen. Oh no. And you hear my voice first. And as soon as I heard my voice, I went onto the floor and hid behind the theater seat in front of me. And my best friend's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "How do I look? Do I look all right?" She's like, "You look fine." I'm like, "Okay." Yeah. So, yeah. And then afterwards, people were stabbing themselves. Like the people from HBO at the reception were like, "Oh my God, it's you." And they were pretending to stab themselves. And Joe's like, "Oh yeah, we played you over and over again as we were editing the film." I'm like, great. I don't even remember doing it. And the best part was the mic was right there. So you really hear me bash myself in my chest. So yeah, if you've never seen any of them, you should, because you all know HBO sports documentaries and HBO sports in general are great, but those 3 documentaries they're good.
I have the first and last line of Reverse the Curse, which I know you haven't watched, but
no,
but
I will never. Thank you.
I know, but if you want to just watch the beginning and the very end,
no, why would I want to watch the end?
The one thing is I knew I was going to tell the story about in Curse of the Bambino. I tell the story about when the Red Sox were 1 strike away against the Mets in the 10th inning. That my brother, because we're Red Sox fans who were awful, our emotion was not, let's experience this joy. Our emotion was going to be, let's rub it in the face of my uncle who was a Mets fan. And my brother, the whole inning after the second out was made, Hernandez flew out. My brother was dialing my uncle in New Jersey every number except for the last one, and his thumb would be over it, waiting. Foul ball. And that's and I was telling that story. And also the fact that when I have the vivid memory of when Gary Carter got the single to, with 2 outs, he singled, and Vin Scully said, "The Mets are still alive," and I yelled from my couch, "Yeah, right." And but I had a line that I said that I think I said it spontaneously. I don't remember saying it beforehand, but the line that I said that got me a lot of attention, especially after what happened when the Red Sox were getting closer and closer, which was, I said, I was asked what would happen if they win. And I think they asked all of us, like Stephen Wright and Dennis Leary and all the other people who were in the doc were asked that. What do you think is going to happen if they win? And I said, the death toll in New England is going to be catastrophic, because there are so many old people who are saying, I can't die until I see him win the World Series. They're all going to just drop dead, and it's going to be worse than the Black Plague. And the funny thing is after they did win, there were all these articles of grandpas, like their last word being "Go Sox" and then dying, or like someone holding on in the hospital and then they won. And this couple had been married since, like, I think since Miles Standish landed in Plymouth, were holding hands, and they both died by that November. I mean, it was just all these people. It was the Bring Out Your Dead from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And yeah, I remembered saying that, and I got calls from all sorts of radio stations around New England saying, "You were the guy who talked about. Can you be on our show and talk about this?" And yeah, sure, I'll go in.
Now, the drought wasn't as long, but when the Rangers finally won the Stanley Cup, there is an infamous sign at MSG that said, "Now I can die in peace." And my dad, who was born in 1941, so he missed 1940, laughed his ass off. He thought that was so funny.
Yeah, that was. I have to say, I was in New York when they won the Stanley Cup. That was fun. That was one of the most fun summers of sports. Ironically, 94, the year where they canceled the World Series. But
yes,
living in New York that year was incredible because the Rangers and the Knicks were in the finals at the same time. Yep. So one day was a Knicks final, the next day was a Ranger final. One day it was absolutely, and both went 7. And the Rangers Devils series went 7. I mean, and everything went 7. It was. I mean, I'm mainly a baseball fan, obviously, but I just graduated from college, and every night it was tension beyond belief in New York City. And I'm hardly a hockey fan, but you couldn't be alive and not get into what happened that year. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Look, we're going to talk about a lot of things. We've gone down memory lane right here, and we got to go to our second segment here. But I need a little boost of energy to get into there. Hey, Stacey Gotsulias, if you need a boost of energy, is there something that you would use to sort of like, to give yourself that nutrition to move forward?
Yes, there is. Shall I tell you what it is?
Oh, please! I need to know.
It's Built Bar.
Built Bars are the best tasting protein bars out there. But do you know what? The thing about Built Bars I think is kind of sad is they've run out of flavors. There's no new flavors. There's no new variety. And I'm kind of saddened by that. Aren't you saddened by the lack of variety in Built Bar these days?
Sully is pulling your leg, people.
Oh, I'm trying to throw you an underhand pitch. I'm trying to
Yeah, I know there are so many flavors. It's actually hard for me to choose now. Mint brownie was my all-time favorite, but there are a few flavors now that I've had, and I'm just like, ooh, I don't know. They're a very close second to mint brownie.
Well, the whole thing is they've added the puffs, and it's kind of like it's like when you add it. It's like they've added a new pitch. It's like they've added a split finger. And now they've added the puffs because I've been adamant. It's like raspberry. Raspberry is my favorite. I love that combination of chocolate and the tanginess of the raspberry. But I'm telling you, this cookie dough chunk puff, boom, upper deck. John Sterling should have a call for these. That's how good they are.
Yeah. Yeah. The cookie dough puff is probably, neck and neck with mint brownie for me. Yeah, I agree.
But my big problem, though, with cookie dough chunk puff though is that they have just the calorie situation is obvious. I mean, I didn't check it, but clearly the calories must be just through the roof. I mean, must be 500-600 calories though. I mean, that's I'm trying to watch my waist. I mean, am I right in that? I didn't check it.
No, you're very wrong. They are low calorie but high in protein, so they're really good for you.
Oh my God! So I mean, we're totally. I mean, it can't possibly be under 200 calories, though.
It is. It is.
Oh, really?
Yes, you can watch your figure when you eat a cookie dough puff from Built Bar.
Oh my God! Well, but they can't have that much protein. It must be kind of like having a candy bar, right?
No.
I mean, do we have any? Oh, well, holy cow! It says 15 grams of protein. That's practically having a steak. Now look at. But, it must be really hard to buy these, though. I mean, like they don't have an online presence or anything like that you can have them delivered to your home. And you have to probably go way far out to some place and and be with those intimidating salesmen going like, oh, wouldn't you want to try this? I mean, you can't get these online, right?
Oh, you can. You can go to built.com and use our promo code LOCKED15 and you can get 15% off any order that you make.
Okay, let me write this down here. Are you telling me that I can, but they lock you in on the flavors though. They say, but only good for these flavors. You can't like pick your flavors or make a mixed box or anything like that.
You can make a mixed box. You can pick whatever flavors you want. You can do a combo. It's great. Again, built.com. Really easy. Locked15 is your promo code. You get 15% off.
Yeah. And you know what, folks? You know what? If you don't do this, it's really your fault. It's really your fault. We couldn't make this any easier for you. Built.com, Lock15, pick your flavors. 2 people from HBO are telling you to do this. Go get your Built Bar. I think I got my energy going. And in fact, I think it's worth saying because this episode is, I don't know, I'm either dropping this late on Monday or early on Tuesday. But thanks so much for making Locked On MLB or Locked On Yankees your first listen. Make the other one your second one. But the trade deadline is August 2nd. Locked On MLB has all the breakdowns. Locked On Yankees and Locked On MLB, and all your favorite teams are going to have rapid reactions to any move made. Subscribe now to your favorite Locked On MLB show on YouTube. Check out Locked On Yankees is killing. I love watching you guys on, whether you're doing it by yourself or with Abby on YouTube. Wherever you get your podcasts so you get notified when the episode airs. Just subscribe. All right, we're here with HBO's Stacey Gotsulias. Let's talk a little. Okay, we went down memory lane, but let's. I have to do a mea culpa here. I did not pick the Yankees to go to the postseason this year because
They're not in the postseason yet.
And I certainly didn't expect it to clinch the pennant. You know, to have a trip to the World Series. That they have agreed to cancel the playoffs and just move right on. The line I've said on the show has been the Yankees. I think the main reason I felt that they had too many question marks in their pitching staff going into this year, and they turned the question marks into exclamation points. I mean, Clay Holmes. As what he's done has been unbelievable. And remember, even Garrett Cole was a question mark going into this year. We didn't know what he was going to be like because he was disappointing down the stretch last year. So, hat tipped to the 2022 World Series champion Yankees. And
the thing around Locked On, if you're watching on Locked On MLB and you're seeing me for the first time, the thing that they like to make fun of me for is that I'm not one of those Yankee fans who walks around with their chest puffed and who is talking about, yeah, we're going to make the World Series. We're obviously going to win. I am one of those people who's always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I am not, it's not that I'm not confident. It's just I was basically a pessimist my entire life. And it's hard to get that out of me. Even with all the championships that I've seen in the past, I still have this, the other shoe's going to drop, the other shoe's going to drop, and I still don't feel right. But the Yankees made a couple of moves today that made me feel a bit better about what's going on. But it's not just Holmes. Holmes has scuffled a bit lately, but he's still okay. And Cole is every 3 starts he kind of struggles a little bit. Nestor Cortez, I mean, he was the ace of the staff for the first 2 months of the season. DJ LeMahieu's having a bounce-back season. Gleyber Torres is having a bounce-back season.
Because they put him in his correct position. They put Torres in his correct position. I mean, that goes a long way.
Yeah, Yeah. Anthony Rizzo hit his 26th home run on Monday night. Judge is up to 43 home runs, and
Judge has been disappointing this year. Judge has been a letdown this year.
Staying healthy, So there's a lot of reasons.
I'll tell you the other thing though, because people talk about you and some of the Yankee fans I talk to talk about the 2021 team as if they were a 90-loss team sometimes. The thing that at least and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean they lost that game on Sunday to Kansas City in the 9th, but they had already won 3 out of 4 games, and there were some thrillers, including the walk-off homer and a come-from-behind victory in one of the games against Kansas City. The Yankees, about the midway point last year, they went on that stretch where they had like gut punch after gut punch, with the one against the Angels and the Mets and the Red Sox and the Altuve and the Field of Dreams. All those, I don't recall the Yankees having many gut punch losses this year.
No,
I don't.
Not really.
They haven't had those games where Yeah, they've had a couple of, obviously every team loses every once in a while, and every team.
Yesterday was kind of a gut punch just because of the way that it happened against Holmes, because that's kind of surprising. But yeah, it's been different this year. But I feel like the few losses that they have had lately, like especially July felt weird. It wasn't a good month for them, and hopefully they're turning the page and August will be better. But some of the losses lately have felt a little more like 2021 compared to 2022. But I mean, I'm happy. It's 69 wins.
Yeah,
And someone had said before yesterday's game or after yesterday's game, the Yankees run differential last year at this point was -4, and they're like plus 200 right now.
Yeah.
Like there's a big difference between the teams. Yeah.
Even if they slow down, they're still on pace to win 100 games,
Right.
which nobody was picking this year.
No.
Nobody thought this was 100. So look at, and another thing I'll say that, the Yankees have had, okay, they're not on their 130 win pace they were at the end of May. Okay,
Right.
Gee whiz, what a shocker. They've come back to earth a little bit. But they also look like a team that's been winning games where they don't have their best stuff. Like 3 of the games against Kansas City, one of the games, the starter for Kansas City was throwing a one-hitter.
Yeah.
And another game that, like, Salvador Perez hit a home run in like the 3rd or 4th inning to give him the lead.
Yeah, Cole gave up 5 runs in that inning. He had 2 outs. Then there were 2 defensive miscues. Then Kyle Higashioka called 2 horrible pitches. One was hit for a 2-run single, and the other one was the home run for Perez. And it's like, what the hell just happened here?
But they still won the game. They
Right.
still won the game. And that, in so many ways, a championship team a lot of times will win games they have no business winning.
Right.
Or
the other thing is, sorry, let me just say one thing.
Oh.
The thing that's working for the Yankees this year, if one aspect of the team is kind of in a game, the other ones will bail them out. Like if the offense isn't doing that great, the pitching will do well enough for the offense to kind of kick in at the end. The starter will do what he needs to do. The bullpen will come in, shut the other team down, and then maybe the offense will wake up at the end. Or if a pitcher's not doing so great and gives up 5 runs in an inning, then the offense will come back and win the game. And that's what seems to be the difference. The Yankees defense is a lot better this year, a lot better. And they're preventing, bad things from happening because that was a big issue last season. And yes, they were a 92-win team, but if they had played better, if Boone didn't punt some of the final games of series, so instead of, 2 out of 3, some of these things could have been sweeps. If they hadn't put out the C lineup, if they had beaten Baltimore more, they could have won 98 games instead of 92, and they wouldn't have been in the wild card game. So there were a lot of different things last year. This is what's happening this year. No one expected the Yankees to be this far ahead in the division, ahead of the Rays and the Jays. It's still a double-digit lead at this point, which is just...
And the Rays and the Jays are having good years. It's not like they're 90-loss team. So that's the thing to emphasize. I mean, the Red Sox are dead last and like one game under 500. Like the whole division is playing at least mediocre. So, I mean, it's not like a situation a few years ago when a bunch of the teams people thought were going to contend in the National League East didn't, and suddenly the Nationals won the division. This is, the Rays and the Blue Jays are on line to make the playoffs, and still they have a double-digit lead on them.
Yeah, it's very
awful.
odd.
It's awful.
I'm not
it's
comfortable.
It's just awful.
I know it's awful for you. It's awful
terrible.
for me because I'm stressed. I don't like how I'm stressed about this. I should be happy and I'm not because, again, I'm not one of those obnoxious.
You know why? It's because you grew up with the 80s Yankees. If you grew up with the 90s Yankees with a sense of entitlement, you grew up with teams that you knew were talented. They had Winfield and Ricky Henderson and Dave Righetti and Don Mattingly, Willie Rand. They have good teams and good players, but they weren't good enough to win it. If you were raised with the core 4 and Bob, you probably don't remember the 77 and 78 World Series. So you went your whole lives hearing, God, the Yankees used to win all these World Series and now they don't. Maybe it's me.
Well,
Am I
yeah.
wrong? All right.
No, I mean, the Yankees had a 10-game winning streak. The first 10 games I ever attended, they won them. Mm-hmm. The 11th game was a game in September of 1984. They were playing the Red Sox. They were winning 3-1. I started to get a fever, and my dad's like, well, I'm going to take you home. And I said, no, I don't want to leave the game. And he's like, well, I have to take you home because I was literally like within a half hour, I was like burning up with a fever. So in the car, the Yankees gave up the lead and lost the game, and I blamed myself. And from that point on, I never left a game early.
There's a lesson to be learned there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about who the Yankees acquired, because first of all, they made a huge trade today, and a really, let's be honest, a really smart, good trade, especially when you consider that Severino is back on the 60-day injured list, which probably, when you're 60-game injured list in August, that's
Well,
not that's not
that's more of a roster move, I think, because he was throwing today. So
okay.
they're
Well,
expecting him to come back at some point. It's just a roster crunch kind of a move, and they put him on the IL just because of the moves that were made, and they might be subtracting people, possibly Joey Gallo. So there may be more moves to be made by the Yankees. So just to the Yankee
well,
fans out there, don't panic about Severino.
Well, I was trying to cause a little panic there, but Frankie Montas,
How dare
one
you?
of the best trade chips in baseball, excellent pitcher for Oakland, and Lou Trevino, who's not having his best year this year, but has been a solid. He's actually having a pretty poor season this year with the A's, but he's has been a good reliever in the past,
Right.
and you're asking him to pitch meaningful games, and maybe that'll give him a nice little jolt. Either way, Montas is a wonderful pickup for the Yankees. He gives you a lot of innings, gives you a lot of starts. He's not last year he was a Cy Young contender. That may have been a little bit of a fluke, but he's going to be an innings eater who is with the Yankees' good bullpen, is just going to give you exactly what they need. He's going to give them. You got to give them the innings they need, and they're going to win some game and give them some depth.
Yes.
And I thought this was a fantastic trade for the Yankees.
I was pleasantly surprised, because before that trade, they made this move for Scott Efros from the Cubs, and I thought to myself, okay, because when I woke up this morning on Monday, I was thinking Andrew Benintendi is not enough. They need bullpen help. They need another starter. And here it is, later at night on Monday. They got bullpen help twice. They got a starter. And they didn't have to give up really any of their top prospects.
No.
Waldichuk is actually pretty good. I feel like Waldichuk, because he's part of the Montas Trevino move.
Along with Cooper Bowman, Luis Medina, and J.P. Sears, who I believe he pitched in the major leagues this year.
J.P. Sears did really well for the Yankees in the majors. I was a little bummed about that, but I kind of understand the move that they made, like why they made this move. And, I was a little upset about Waldichuk just because of what Lindsey Crosby was telling me. Locked on prospects, locked on MLB prospects. Lindsey knows his stuff. But Waldichuk apparently is one of those guys who, if he isn't on the 40-man, he could have been lost in the Rule 5 draft. So Cashman threw him in there. Like, he was just like, okay, we'll work this out. So I think that's a good move for the A's, and A's fans should actually be happy with this haul, because Sears, Medina, and Waldichuk, definitely, that's a good trio of arms there for the A's. Yeah, it was, because even Jason from Locked On A's is like, is this good? And Lindsay and I are both like, yes, it actually is. You guys you weren't fleeced or anything like that. It's okay. It's a good move.
I will say something about the A's. They've certainly got volume back for Olsen, for Chapman, for Matt Chapman, for Frankie Montas, for Sean Manaea. They've got, for each one of them, they got 3 or 4 prospects back from each one of them. And so, I don't know what's going to happen with the A's. I've been very vocal. I want them to stay in Oakland. I don't think they're going to. I don't want them to move to Las Vegas. I think Las Vegas is a disaster waiting to happen in baseball. If they have to move to the West Coast, I would like them to move to Portland, or Vancouver, one of the two. But either way, I do think the A's, I don't think what they're doing is tanking.
Right.
I think they are trading players and getting back good assets for them and flooding their farm system. And, we see the A's do this every few years. They'll trade everyone that isn't nailed down and then say, what the hell are they doing? And then 3 years later, geez, they're 93 wins. I've never heard of any of these guys.
Right.
And, they don't win the pennant, but they give, the fans in Oakland are banging their drums and waving the fans in Oakland. I love the fans in Oakland. It's like going to a concert for a band that hasn't been discovered yet. It's not the biggest crowd, but they know every lyric. And, but I like this trade for the A's, just like I liked the Manaea trade. I don't think they got fleeced in any of these deals. But that being said, I think that not every trade has a winner and a loser. I think this was a smart deal. Oh, also they got good value in the trade they made with the Mets involving Chris Bassett and Marte. But I digress. I think this is a great move for the Yankees. These two moves, because they need pitching depth. We've seen is the name of the game when you go into October. It's what helped Washington win. It's what helped Atlanta win. The last two World Series we had full seasons for. And when you have the depth in the pitching staff, you're never going to slug your way to a World Series title. You could probably count on your fingers, on your one hand, the teams that won a World Series title based on mashing the ball. And you're going to be facing teams that have decent pitching who can match up with you for the day. I mean, look at last year, the best starting pitching rotation last year's playoffs was Milwaukee. And they didn't get out of the first round because Atlanta's pitching depth of their bullpen, they weren't better over 162. They were better over 4.
Yeah.
So I think we know the Yankees can hit, especially since they've traded bad LeMahieu for good LeMahieu, and they've traded Sanchez for Trevino, basically, and Benintendi. Oh, my beautiful Benintendi. My beautiful Benintendi is, he's a step up from Gallo. And assuming that Stanton's going to be healthy, and Judge is just playing on a different level right now. They have the superstar pieces in place, so they need the depth pieces in place. And every move the Yankees made, I thought was really smart and really smart for building an October run, because that's what the main thing they need to do.
Right, because I said that on my show a few times. I said, it's all well and good making it to October, but you have to make it through October. And Brian Cashman needs to make moves to make it through October, step on people's throats, don't hold back, and do as much as you possibly can at the trade deadline. And I'm happy with these moves, because I feel like they would have had to give up way too much for Luis Castillo. Would I have liked to have Luis Castillo in the starting rotation? Of course, but I feel like I think he would have cost too much. And of all these moves, this is what happened so far, because who knows? The Yankees still might not be done. They still have some chips that they could actually use. The Yankees have acquired Frankie Montas, Andrew Benintendi, Scott Efros, and Lou Trevino for Ken Waldachuk, Hayden Wesneski, J.P. Sears, Luis Medina, Cooper Bowman, Beck Way, TJ Sikkema, and Chandler Champlain. No Volpe, Peraza, Dominguez, or Austin Wells. They didn't give up any of those guys for any of these people. So,
and you still you'll put Trevino in a bullpen that is led by Holmes. Peralta's been good. Lucas Litke has been good.
As much as I hate to say this, Aroldis Chapman has been looking better in his last few outings because he got his fastball back.
And you have, Taillon's been fine. Cortez has, obviously Cortez has come down a little bit from his superstar Cy Young self, but no one was expecting that.
Right.
I think if you had said, okay, Stacey, it's on early August, Nestor Cortez will have thrown 19 starts and have a 9-3 record with an ERA of 2.53. Are you taking it? I have a feeling you'd say yes.
Every day and twice on Sunday.
And Cole is back. Cole is back being a true ace, innings-eating ace. Yes, he has every few games he has a garbage start, but you add Montas to that rotation, you add the two new relievers to that bullpen, and Albert Abreu has pitched well too. Like anytime you get that depth, that's what won the World Series for Atlanta last year.
Jonathan Loaisiga's coming back too. Yeah, everyone forgets that they lost Chad Green early in the season to an injury. They just Michael King. That was a big blow because Michael King was unbelievable this season. It
Yeah.
was like him and Clay
Yeah.
Holmes. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, like, wow, can't believe
Yeah.
they're doing what they're doing."
Losing King. By the way, if in one of those if you went to the beginning of the season and you said, "Do you know what the biggest Yankee pickup is going to be? Do you want of all the acquisitions, the one that will really be paying benefits on the field, giving them the flexibility?" We all knew it was going to be Matt Carpenter. We all knew that Matt Carpenter was going to show up from St. Louis and and be a home run hitting.
He has 15 home runs since May 26th is when
He has 15 home runs in 41 games.
It's insane.
Stupid. It's
And
stupid.
since July 14th, Aaron Judge hasn't gone more than 2 games without a home run.
I mean, and look at Carpenter was a fine player. It's a couple of very good years with the Cardinals, but
Yeah.
he's like the last few years has been. I mean, last year he
I think
slashed.
it's the mustache.
Do you know what he slashed last year with the Cardinals over 130 games? He batted 169, an on base of 305, and a slugging of 275.
Wow.
That's over 130 games. Yeah. Yeah. And
It's the magic of the stash, just like Nestor Cortez. They can't shave them. They have to keep them on their faces.
He's closer to 40 than to 30, and he's having this kind of a season. And can play and get look at he's a horrible outfielder.
Right.
But they don't need him in the outfield after the Benintendi trade.
Right. I mean, they still put him out there, but yeah, as long as it's a can of corn, he's fine.
Yeah.
And his home runs aren't Yankee Stadium cheapies either.
No.
Yeah, it's funny.
This is I mean, sometimes it changes scenery. Like, because he was a Cardinal for a long time. He played in the World Series with the Cardinals and everything. And he was just one of those guys, he's one of these, Cardinal for life types guys.
Right.
And a change of scenery, could do someone good. And he looks like he should be in Barney Miller's precinct with that mustache. But hey, whatever works, and clearly it's working. It's working, Stacey Gotsulias, and it makes me sick.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Not,
now I look at. I know you are the most pessimistic Yankee fan out there.
Yes. No, I'm not pessimistic. I'm cautious.
Okay.
I'm cautious.
Let me throw this question out to you. What scenario are you most nervous about with this Yankee team going into October? They're gonna win the division. I don't mean to jump the gun. They're gonna win the division. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So obviously you have a best case scenario. Obviously,
let's go back to 9 innings from ground zero when I did this.
Yes.
During my interview.
What team makes you nervous? What scenario makes you nervous? And what do you just sort of like, oh, please not this, please not this, please not this?
And
it's not going to be the Red Sox, so don't worry about them. They're going to be playing golf.
I don't know if I'm worried. I just would like for there to finally be a moment where the Yankees can get one over on the Astros. Like, I want it to be how it was in 2009. After struggling against the Angels in 2002 and 2005, they finally beat them in 2009. I'm kind of hoping that would be the scenario against Houston this year. I don't think anything... I mean, everything about the playoffs worries me because it's really a crapshoot. Because you can have the best team and not make it out of the first round because the other team can have a better 4 games than you. I mean, we've seen it happen so many
2011
times.
Phillies. The 2011 Phillies were one of the best teams I ever saw in my life.
Yeah.
And they lost to the Cardinals in the division series on a 1-0 shutout by Chris Carpenter. You know? I mean, I thought that team was going to sweep I thought they were going to run the table in 2011. And they did make it out of the first round. But
I'm trying to think of other scenarios. I just would like for them to make it to the World Series so we can stop hearing about the Yankees haven't made the World Series since they won the World Series in '09. That
was a
sort of
great
thing.
impersonation of me, by the way, that you just did.
You're welcome. But yeah, I would just like for them to get past Houston so I could stop hearing everyone's big mouth about it.
Yeah.
But I don't pay attention to them other than when we play them. I hate doing that. I hate doing that. When they play them, and, I don't even want to think about that yet. I just want them to win the division.
Let me ask you one more horrible question. Okay.
Oh, no.
Right now, from where I'm sitting, I'm picking a Subway Series.
Oh, God, I hope not.
That's the question. I was going to say, what is your, I'll tell you what Fox wants. What Fox wants.
They don't want a Subway Series.
No, not at all. They want the Dodgers and the Yankees. They want LA, New York is what they want.
Because Subway Series, the rest of the country doesn't give a crap about New York.
But think of the clips you can pull out from a Subway, a Dodgers Yankee World Series, which we haven't had since 1981.
Well, yeah, because, when I was a kid, the Mets, my dad didn't care about the Mets. Like, my dad we watched Mets games because my dad, yes, he was a Yankee fan, but he didn't hate the Mets. We hated the Royals. I was brought up to hate the Royals, the Red Sox, and the Dodgers because those were the teams from when I was younger, and the Yankees played them in the playoffs. That's who we were supposed to not like. So I think, a Yankees-Dodgers series could be crazy, but I think most baseball fans would not want that to happen. I think they'd want, a meteor. Like how I am when, the Astros and the Red Sox are in an ALCS, I root for the meteor. That's how people would be if the Yankees and Dodgers were in the World Series.
What's funny, I was thinking about this in the late 80s when I was in high school. The Red Sox-Yankee rivalry was really dormant then.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a much bigger rivalry amongst Red Sox fans with Toronto, who a couple of times they went down to the wire with the Blue Jays in the division. And also for me personally, Oakland, because I was living in the Bay Area when the Red Sox got swept twice by the A's in the ALCS. And there was a big rivalry between Clemens and Dave Stewart.
Oh,
where
right.
Clemens would win the Cy Young Awards, but Dave Stewart was the winner. And when Clemens got ejected from Game 4 of the ALCS in 1990, and the A's went on to win, they clinched the pennant. Dave Stewart won the MVP again for the ALCS. He won three postseason MVP awards in his career. And someone asked Dave Stewart, has that ever happened to you? What happened to Clemens before? And his response was, what, get thrown out of a game where my team needed me? No, I never have done that.
It's funny that you bring up Clemens because I think it was the New York ESPN station, the radio station, posed a question. If you could bring one of these guys back in their prime and add them to the Yankees roster, who would you want in their prime? Jeter, Mo, Roger Clemens, or A-Rod? I picked Clemens.
Has to be Clemens.
Yeah. If the Yankees could have prime Roger Clemens
in
the rotation, hell,
my God.
Yes.
In fact, I'm going to tease. So you've inadvertently teased an episode which I'm dropping later this week. The notion of the superstar ace has become a thing of the past.
Yeah.
It's become the superstar aces we're talking about now are still the ones we were talking about 10 years ago, like Verlander and Kershaw and Scherzer. And you take a look at someone who, let's go down like in his, let's call his prime between 86 and 99. Let's just say that, okay?
Right.
And where you look down the line, innings pitched, 254, 282, 264, 253, 222, 271, 246. 18 complete games, 11 complete games, 13 complete games, 11 complete games. And the year where he threw 228 innings to an ERA of 1.93. Struck out, would lead the league in strikeouts. You have someone like that where you hand the ball to him and he's averaging 7 1/3 innings a start.
Right.
And, to while leading the league in ERA and strikeouts, where his IMDb or the IMDb page, his baseballreference.com page is just all black italics because he's leading the league in everything. Yeah, you want to put that into your team.
Yep. There wasn't even a hesitation on my part. Not even, I was like, Clemens, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I was the biggest Clemens fan in the world when he was in Boston. And when the Red Sox let him go, and those first 2 years he played for Toronto, every day he started, I had a Blue Jays cap, and I would wear a Blue Jays cap whenever Clemens started. I was such a rabid Clemens fan, and I could not believe, even he was starting to lose a step. The year he was losing a step.
Didn't they say he was in the sunset of his career?
He was in the sunset of his career in 1996, the year he led the league in strikeouts with 257. He threw 242 and 2/3 innings, and his ERA was in the threes. Okay?
That's quite a sunset.
Yeah. Let him walk. Let him walk. Well, I'm not going to let you walk, but unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap this up here. Stacey Gotsulias, host of Locked On Yankees. Where can people find your show?
You can find us at Locked On Yankees on every podcasting platform available, and you can look at our gorgeous faces on YouTube. Yes, that's a joke. It's sometimes me and sometimes me with my co-host Abby Mastracco, and we have a good time when we do the show. She loves ribbing me because I'm cautious, and she thinks it's hilarious that I'm not an obnoxious Yankee fan. And it's a fun time. You can find us on Twitter also at Locked On Yankees, all one word. You can find me on Twitter at Stace Gots. I'm also my screen name is Staceball because I like a good pun.
There you go. And you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pod. Same handle for Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. If you look down there in the YouTubes, I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. If you want to throw anything my way, it's best to do it via Twitter because I sometimes forget I have Instagram. Hey, talking about the Yankees with someone who has forgotten more Yankees than I'll ever know, Stacey Gotsulias. This has been Locked On MLB for either the first or the second day of August. I don't know when this is dropping. It's one of those two. You're probably hearing it on the second. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please, I'm begging you, call me Sully.